What's going on, my fellow A-plusers? Welcome back once again to a brand new video. It's your host, Adam Perez, back once again with another Supergirl review, ladies and gentlemen, as we get down into the newest episode that we wind up having here this week. And if you ask me, let me get my pillow ready here, because this one was a little bit of a snore fest for me, if I could be honest with you guys. Listen, you know, I didn't mind sort of the slow pace, if you will, coming back from the mid-season finale. You know, the idea of ushering in Kara once again, welcoming her back, getting the opportunity to have some of our characters push their storyline a little bit more, focus more on characters, storylines, personalities, sort of thing, right? Maybe take a step off of the action, if you will, a little bit. We got maybe 2 weeks worth of that, and I was okay with that. I was okay with that. But 3 weeks in, and this episode felt probably the most underwhelming out of the all in total three that we've gotten so far since we've certainly come back. I was not necessarily the biggest fan of this episode, with the exception of maybe like the last, I would say maybe like 5 to 10 minutes of this episode. Once the action really hits, getting the opportunity to see Orlando, a character who was a pretty big focus last week along with his little brother, getting the opportunity to see Orlando speaking in front of the cameras, getting to see Nixie now fully powered up, really putting sort of Supergirl in a very dire sort of situation. That really got me pumped for the direction in which the remainder of this season was going to go, if not at least next week's episode, to certainly say the least. But outside of that, this episode truly just did not do too much for me. This episode, we really get to see a couple of things here. Dreamer finally in contact with her mom due to the deal that she wind up having with Nixie, which Nixie does, at least for the most part, come through with that part of the plan. The other part of the plan she doesn't tell Dreamer, unfortunately, is that she's gonna trap her also in this dream world or dream scenario with her mom for the next 24 hours, however long her mom is certainly around, which gives Nixie the perfect amount of time to certainly go about doing what she needs to do to certainly acquire her abilities back. Wasn't quite sure if that's what she was doing to begin with, but once everything starts coming together and you see the plan working to perfection in here, absolutely love the stuff that we wind up getting with Nixie towards the end of this episode. But I feel like just the idea of bringing back, say, one of the villains that we wind up getting from the time traveling episode where we saw them go back into the 90s to go ahead and help out a young Kara and Alex, you know, those two aliens that were kidnapping people and things like that, clearly come back. At least one of them certainly comes back in a more of a human form, since I think he spent his time in prison, managed to kind of go ahead and get out and sort of fell back into the crime business, if you will. And so, considering the fact that I wasn't the biggest fan of those characters as villains for the most part, the idea of Nixie's plan coming together, at least, I really didn't care too much about, honestly, until she actually wind up getting her abilities back. So I just thought that was a little bit underwhelming in regards to that. But for me, the three big standouts have to be Dreamer, the Kelly situation, and of course Kara. Let's talk about Dreamer here briefly, okay? Because we do see that she winds up getting her wish, and I gotta say, to spend 24 hours with your mom, I mean, literally all season long, you've complained about wanting to see her again, heartbroken over the idea that, you know, she wasn't around for you. She didn't get the opportunity to train you the way that you should fully be trained because you don't feel confident enough sort of in your abilities. You know, to kind of see what we wound up getting in this one episode for the 24 hours, super underwhelming stuff. There's a part of me that really wanted to see more deep conversations with them, maybe more training, right? I almost felt like if it was a dilemma of Dreamer having to deal with the idea of feeling some type of way about her sister Maeve, I felt like that episode probably could have been handled, or that aspect of the episode could have been handled in its own storyline or whatever the case may be. But to have to deal with that issue with Maeve, her sister, have to learn how to sort of trust her abilities, or what her dreams are certainly saying to her, and have her mom there to go through that with. I almost felt like she didn't even need her mom for any of this. And maybe that's what the lesson is, right? The fact that she's more than capable of doing this stuff on her own if she just truly listens to her dreams. I mean, the fact that her mom got a little bit frustrated with her, I can kind of understand. Like, how are you not picking up on the idea that a talking owl is speaking with you? Like, I'm sorry, but if I have some dreams and an owl that looks as majestic and as gorgeous as that is talking to me and dropping some deep knowledge on me, I'm gonna listen to it. So the idea of her just, you know, not knowing how to trust her abilities, confront the situation with Maeve, I almost feel like, I don't want to say she didn't learn anything, but the way that they just kind of glossed over this episode of the idea of Dreamer and her mother finally getting together, I just thought we were going to have more impactful stuff, maybe a little bit of a Rocky training montage, right, to kind of see her understanding her abilities a little bit more, but we didn't really get any of that. What we wound up getting was an unpleasant mother who knows that her daughter's capable of doing more, showcasing her maybe some Maeve stuff, talking her through maybe a little bit of thing, and then giving her some advice before she winds up leaving. And I just thought to myself, it was just really underwhelming based off of how much Dreamer has been talking about this all season long. So I just wish the execution on that aspect of the story, because if this is what you gave up for Nixie to go ahead and start doing her thing, talk about a huge ass mistake. Talk about a huge ass mistake. And I definitely do think that it is one that Dreamer certainly will learn. Clearly her mom understands you got to make up for the mistakes that you wound up actually doing here today, and she definitely has a bone to certainly pick with Nixie. But again, to go all through all of that stuff, which is very underwhelming sort of training, because if you ask me, I almost think like now that even though Dreamer has sort of I really do feel like this storyline came down more to Maeve and wanting to kind of set that record straight. Her sister, am I even saying her name right? Maeve? Is that her sister's name? I almost feel like that was more the issue than it was I miss my mom and I need help. And so I almost feel like Dreamer's in the same position that she certainly was prior to this. So again, I was just not a big fan of the execution of this, but I am curious to see what Dreamer has learned. Has she become more powerful since this encounter with her mom? And how is exactly she going to go ahead and handle Nixley? I definitely will be fascinated to see how that's handled. When it comes to Supergirl, this episode for me, again, was just kind of like a checking up on Orlando, along with Orlando's little brother. You know, we don't really get to see Supergirl using her abilities too much until the very end when she's trying to, you know, take out that ice bomb, if you will. But the one thing that we did talk about last week was the idea of, is Supergirl using her voice enough? I did love the little PSA that we wound up seeing in the very beginning. I love the fact that they're tackling that idea. Supergirl using her voice to go ahead and send really great messages to people, if you will. People will, in fact, sort of listen to her. And the fact that her PSA with Brainiac just knocked out of the park in regards to so many views does speak volumes. I mean, granted, it's something as small as eating your vegetables, but her voice certainly does go a long way. I'm sure there are plenty of kids out there after watching that are going to start eating their vegetables now. So I thought that was pretty funny, pretty atrocious all at the same time. Sort of like, I could see why Kara certainly did not want that video to go viral whatsoever, but I absolutely loved it. It was so 80s to me, so 80s, 90s sort of lesson of the day that it truly did work. But I also love the pushback that Supergirl does get on social media here, because I do feel like the moment that Andreas references the idea of Supergirl using social media as her platform, I just automatically thought that's got to be like the biggest mistake, right? Because like everybody on social media has an opinion about something. Not everybody's going to agree with you. There's always going to be constant pushback. So the fact that we've got Supergirl, who's as well known as she is, going out and taking a stance for somebody, I love the fact that they at least do show the side of social media where people are going to disagree with you, right? And they are going to go ahead and push back. Do you have the answers? Those sort of things. So I love that the social media take wasn't that easy for Supergirl to go ahead and just win over everybody's approval. I do love the idea that she does get some pushback in this episode, and is smart enough to realize to give that platform to somebody else for that opportunity, right? That's lived that life, that knows that struggle, that can really articulate themselves and what it is that they're going through and what they're going to certainly be missing out on. And it's that running theme when it comes to Supergirl, especially this season, it feels like, of trying to take down or fix some of the systematic failures that are in our government, or just how the way things are certainly run, right? The idea that these big sort of corporate companies look at people more as dollar signs than they do actual, human beings, right? The lack of sort of empathy, right? I mean, we've all heard the term gentrification, right? Wanting to build up a community, if you will, by either like renovating the, old buildings, putting in sort of new corporate buildings, stores, whatever the case may be, to really raise up the community. But what you end up doing at the end of the day is you start setting prices way too high for those that are certainly living there already to continue to live, right? So while gentrification sounds great on the outside of like, hey, let's build up this community, make no mistake, they're not building up the community for you, the people that live in the community. They're trying to, and the process is to bring in other people into this community to either help clean it up, raise the profits and things like that, right? So people end up wanting to either being kicked out of their house, having to go to another low income part of the town. Some people end up sort of homeless, if you will, right? So it is sort of that push and pull. There's nothing wrong with building up a community, but at least build it up for the people that need it, that are certainly living there. And that's not the case when it usually comes to gentrification. I mean, you could be living someplace that's like $700 a month for a single bedroom. Gentrification happens, and all of a sudden you're paying $1,000 a month, if not a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? Every situation is certainly different, but Supergirl continues to tackle that concept and the idea that it's not just going to be so easy to just be opinionated about something and have people truly listen to you. So the idea of being bold enough to give somebody a platform that does live that life and hopefully sway some people's opinions, I thought was a really great idea on her part. But listen, Karen's coming after her, okay? I don't remember the lady's name that was trying to orchestrate this whatsoever, but she clearly seems as though she's got a bone to pick with Supergirl and isn't backing up like whatsoever. So I will be interested to see what happens in that regards. And then just seeing the situation that Kara finds herself in at the end of this episode, helpless, having to face somebody that's with magic powers, and we know how that works out when it's Kryptonians facing off. I was going to say facing off and verses at the same time, so I got vases. Facing off against somebody with magic abilities don't really end very well for Kryptonians, but the last minute judgment to all of a sudden call in Mr. Mixelplick, or Mixie, we'll call him Mixie, and Nixie now are both in the situation. I do not see this going Supergirl's way. There's a part of me that thinking to myself, okay, so we've got two powerful imps now. I can just see them all of a sudden deciding to tag team and make Supergirl's life a living hell. So we'll see if that's the route that they definitely go or not. But talk about a last minute ditch decision here and bringing Mixie into play. I will be interested to see if that helps, if that benefits or hurts Supergirl in next week's episode. So I will be fascinated by that. And then really Kelly winds up being in this episode also. We get the opportunity to see her doing a little bit of training. Alex, for the most part, really kicking her ass. There is a moment where Kelly does get the upper hand, using either one of her own moves, but is more determined to try and get what Alex is teaching her sort of the correct way. So she's being very hard on herself, right? She's more than capable of doing it, but just being really in her head and being way too hard on herself. She does have a moment in here of being rather heroic, saving the Karen in this episode. So kudos to her for, at least giving herself that self-belief that she certainly needs to go ahead and become Guardian. I was kind of hoping that maybe we would see the costume today, but I'm almost thinking maybe that's next week. Like I'm kind of curious, like, is Orlando and this young boy gonna continue in this episode, in this series, or like for the first these 3 episodes total, perhaps? Maybe the idea like this is the storyline for Kelly to push her into that guardianship. So I would be interested to see exactly where that's gonna go, and if Orlando and his brother will pop back up in here at some point in time, but I'm so ready for that Guardian suit. I truly am. Outside of that, you know, that's really about it that wind up happening in this episode for the most part. Love seeing the Super Friends continue to sort of work together, if you will. Nixie ends up being more powerful than even we certainly expected now that she's got all of her abilities back. Great plan, but I just was not the biggest fan of certainly how it wind up coming together. But you know, I want to know what you guys think. What did you guys think about this particular episode of Supergirl? Was it a hit for you? Was it a miss for you like it was me this time? Like I can only go so long without having really important and impactful episodes happen, and I felt like for the most part this was definitely able to be sleep through, with the exception of maybe like the last 5 to 10 minutes of this particular episode. So underwhelmed, unfortunately, but we'll see what next week winds up having for us. But again, I want to know your thoughts. These are just simply my A+ opinions. At the end of the day, I want to know yours though. So let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below after this video airs. And if there's anything that I missed, whether that be character moments, storyline details that you want to further discuss, let's go ahead and talk about it in the comment section, guys, before next week's episode. But until then, guys, do me a big favor. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. If you enjoy our content and want to be a part of helping our channel grow, become a patron supporter. We have affordable tiers to choose from that offer a variety of exclusive and early access content, from audio files for all of our shows for you to enjoy on the road, access to our Discord community, and plenty of reactions, reviews, character breakdowns, and more. Check us out at patreon.com/A+opinions, and as always, remember, like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so anytime we drop a brand new video, you will be notified.